The reason I wanted to bring this to India is because A, it's relevant to us that most Muslims here have an origin which is Indian. In essence, obviously, our origin, when we're talking about India here, we're talking centuries ago when it was all Hind, when it was all Hindustan. It wasn't, there was nothing, no Pakistan, there was nothing like that. So it was all considered India. The work that is done at that stage, I think that it's almost too important that we address it. So, moving to Al-Hind. Phir bhi dil hai Hindustani. I think we need that playing in the background. Right, so, right. If you remember, I began in the previous lesson by going through some names of some people that had played a key role in the documentation of hadith, as they wrote them out as books. Key people. Now, amongst them, there was a particular Basri scholar. Do you remember his name? No, Abu Muawiyah? Oh no, don't mention my name. Right. Al-Rabi' ibn Sabih al-Basri. You're lucky this is being recorded. Otherwise, there would have been a response to that. Right, so he is the person who Sheikh Haji Khalifa says in his Kashf al-Dhunun, huwa awwalu man sannaf fil Islam. That some people said that he was the first person to author in Islam. Like as in books, because books, they say he was one of the first people to document hadith. If you're considering, you're bypassing the type of, what the Sahaba had put down as waraqat. They weren't like books. It wasn't like, do you understand? It wasn't, what the Sahaba wrote was sahaif, considered like, wrote literature. Yeah. They wrote literature. So it's like they had certain scriptures with them, but it wasn't considered like, it wasn't like in a book, something that could be described as a book.
So was he a Tabi?
Yeah, he was from the Tabi'in. Now, Rabi' ibn Sabih al-Basri was one of the earliest people who wrote. Whether he wrote in Islam, that's what Haji Khalifa says in his Kashf al-Dhunun. However, even if he didn't, as Abu al-Hasan al-Nadwi writes, that لا شك أنهم من أول المؤلفين في علم الحديث إن لم يكن أولهم بإطلاق. Okay, he's somebody who dies. He dies 10 years almost before Imam Malik. No, sorry, almost 20 years. He dies in 160 Hijri, just 10 years after Imam Abu Hanifa. This person, one of the first authors in hadith, where does he die? In India.
No.
In a way, almost setting about a sign almost that he has planted the seeds of something that will emerge and blossom, not now, but maybe after 1,000 years from him, at a time when it will be most crucial. I'll take you to the words of some scholars. Zahid al-Kawthari, Imam Zahid al-Kawthari, who's known for his somebody passed away last century, very known for his Hanafiness, almost a hardcore muta'assib Hanafi, was undoubtedly a great scholar who was also committed to hadith and the revival of hadith studies. Now he writes in his Maqalat al-Kawthari, he says, وَكَانَ حَظُّ إِقْلِيمِ الْهِنْدِ مِنْ هَذَا الْمِيرَاثِ, that the fortune or the portion of the lands of India in this inheritance, in this prophetic inheritance of hadith. منذ منتصف القرن العاشر, since really the 10th century onwards. He says هو النشاط في علوم الحديث, that their portion was the energy, the enthusiasm in the sciences of hadith. This was their portion. He says فأقبل علماء الهند عليها إقبالا كليا, that the ulama of Hind devoted themselves to this study. بعد أن كانوا منصرفين إلى الفقه المجرد والعلوم النظرية, after they had been devoid of it by being strictly secluded to fiqh or confined to fiqh and just nadhari, the sciences of logic and things like this. He says ولو استعرضنا ما لعلماء الهند من الهمة العظيمة في علوم الحديث من ذلك الحين. He says مدة ركود العقاليم لوقع ذلك موقع الإعجاب الكلي and he says والشكر العميق. He says if we were to take their efforts that will ensue from that stage and compare them relatively with the other, the major global spaces, really major geographical locations within the Muslim world, and see the efforts of the ulama of Hind, he says we would be in awe and deep gratitude to these people. So, and in them serving the sunnah, he says, and I think this is important, he says وَكَمْ لِعُلَمَائِهِمْ مِنْ شُرُوحٍ مُمْتِعَةٍ. He says, and how many of their scholars have got amazing commentaries وَتَعْلِيقَاتٍ نَافِعَةٍ, and very beneficial notes على أصول الستة وغيره, upon the major 6 books of hadith and other than them. وَكَمْ لَهُم مِّن مُؤَلَّفَاتٍ وَاسِعَةٍ فِي أَحَادِيثِ الْأَحْكَامِ, and how many books they've authored when it comes to the rulings of hadith. وَكَمْ لَهُم مِّن أَيَادٍ بَيْضَاءٍ فِي نَقْدِ الرِّجَالِ, and how much work they've done in jarh wa ta'dil وعلل الحديث وشرح الآثار وتأليف مؤلفات في شتى الموضوعات. So, okay, so let's try and learn a bit about what is he going on about. What was all of this? Okay, now it's
Could they possibly expand anything on Jarh wa Ta'dil? That would be documented before, wouldn't it?
yeah, but it would expand on it, as in not to invent it, but to mention certain critical points and to contribute to it significantly, as in like making substantial contributions to the science. You're right in the sense it has generally been all done, but you can still come up with unique points, as we'll see, of people like Sheikh Abdul Hayy al-Lakhnawi has his amazing his book on Rafa' wa Takmil, on Jarh wa Ta'dil, and that's just as an example. But so now, like, here was some of these names I want to mention. It is said that India fell into a huge stage of darkness. That for centuries, although Islam was there and many of the rulers were Muslim rulers, and there were ulama present in India, however, it had been so overtaken by just fiqh. They had become so immersed in their own just logic, just fiqh, wal usul. A hadith had begun to be abandoned almost altogether, you could say, in most parts. That seldom would you find somebody involved in such studies, let alone also things like certain practices of bid'at had become so overwhelming, and maybe because of their closer links to the Hindu practices that were going on, they were so difficult to eradicate, And by just fiqh alone, you can never just eradicate these type of things. Then Allah blesses this subcontinent with legends that begin to emerge. And amongst some of the names, and we'll go through them again in a moment, are people that you will see that start to attend it from all different parts of the world. They say some of these, and from different madhabs as well. People like Sheikh Shihab Ahmed Badruddin al-Misri from Egypt, Sheikh Muhammad Ahmed al-Faqihi al-Hanbali. These people come to a Misri scholar who's a Maliki, Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Rahman. There's a name, Sheikh Rafi'uddin al-Chishti. Now these are some names I'm mentioning to you. What happens? A popular name emerges all of a sudden. This name is Sheikh Husamuddin Ali al-Muttaqi. Okay? Remember this name, Husamuddin al-Muttaqi. Like somebody with taqwa. That was his name. Al-Burhanwi. Now he passes away in 975 Hijri. What he does is he gets the jami'. He's somebody who becomes incredibly devoted to hadith. He travels. He gets the jami' of As-Suyuti, the Jam' al-Jawami'. Oh, he's got so many ahadith really put together from all the books, and he reorganizes them according to the fiqhi, as a sunan in the fiqhi chapters. And he calls this Kanzul Ummal. So the book Kanzul Ummal belongs to Sheikh Husamuddin al-Muttaqi. Okay, al-Burhanwi. Now, to the extent, and this is a massive work, that people said that inna lis-Suyuti minna ala al-alamin, that ala al-alamin almost, that Suyuti has a huge, that the ummah was indebted to him almost with his collection of hadith. Walil muttaqi minnatun alayhi, and muttaqi has this huge grace upon him for what he did. Now, from his students comes somebody known as Muhammad ibn Tahir al-Fatani, and he was from Gujarat, from modern. He was even then called Gujarat. He's somebody who passes away in 986 Hijri. What he does is he authors the book Majma'u Bihar al-Anwar, which still remains a very popular book today. It is what he compiles and gathers in it all the Gharibul Hadith and what has been authored for as a commentary on words for the Sihahu Sitta. Okay. Now, these people, they set the scale for what is going to come. What they start to do, these people start to, with their passion, infuse some life into India. By first of all collecting all of these hadith, they were already collected by Suyuti, but organizing them in a way that made them accessible. Then his student gathering together like a dictionary of all the words for the Sihah, putting them together, Majma' Bihar al-Anwar, making it accessible, allowing people to access these things. Then comes somebody who is known as Sheikh Al-Allama Abdul Haq Al-Bukhari Al-Dahlawi. Okay, or sometimes it's called Muhaddith Abdul Haq Al-Dahlawi. Now he passes away in 1052 Hijri. He's somebody who had traveled to Hijaz, traveled outside of India. He gathers together a huge resource of hadith, ilm, the depths, the ins, the outs of rijal, of mustalah al-hadith, of the actual mutun al-hadith, and he brings that knowledge back to India, where he sets up and begins to teach So he starts, and he writes commentaries as well. And he authors in Usul al-Hadith, and he starts to set up like actual classes, mandatory classes, where he is teaching his students actual Hadith text, reviving this science. Because this wasn't a practice thing. People didn't used to teach Hadith in India. It wasn't something that was done. Now, you could say almost on the later end of, or what Shaykh Muhaddith Abdul Haq al-Dahlawi was doing, was setting the stage for who would become the pivotal point for India. This so far was just a muqaddimah. It was just an introduction, just setting. It was that there was these were tremors. Maybe a bit of an earthquake, you could say. What was yet to be launched was a tsunami that would redefine India till this very age, this very day that we're in. Set about a huge service to the Sunnah. And that was, any idea who that is? Absolutely. Shaykh Ahmad ibn Abdul Rahim al-Dahlawi, aka Shah Waliullah al-Dahlawi. Shah Waliullah was a legend. Okay, he was an absolute legend when it came to Hadith. His father himself, Abdul Rahim, was somebody that had a strong taking to Hadith. So before he even arrives on the scene, his father, like contemporary also to Shaykh Muhaddith Abdul Haq al-Dahlawi, so on, was influenced now with this new emergence of Hadith and took a very strong liking to it. So his father set up a madrasa in Delhi called Al-Madrasa Al-Rahimiyya. This madrasa, or this, what his father was doing, although he's just setting up a simple madrasa, like what Shaykh Muhaddith Abdul Haq al-Dahlawi was doing and so on, set in the syllabus that people should study Hadith. And at that time, what they were studying was more things like Mishkatul Masabih. And maybe some places they were studying like Kanzul Ummal, and they were studying things like this. Now, Shaykh Muhaddith Abdul Haq al-Dahlawi, they say, had his own commentary on Mishkatul Masabih that it set out. Shaykh Abdul Rahim has this interest where he starts to encourage his students to look at the books like the Sahih and other books, and of the Sihah al-Sitt or the Ummahat al-Kutub, and take a look at them and encouraging people and so on and so forth. Now along comes his son Shah Waliullah.
So is Shaykh Abdul Rahim a brother of Shaykh Abdul Haq?
No, he's not his brother. It was contemporary, but he's not his brother, no. Right, so but what I'm trying to, the reason I mentioned the contemporary thing, there's something in the air now. This thing is in the air that, look, we need to revive, we need to move back to Hadith, that there hasn't been Hadith around for a while. So you see Shah Waliullah Dahlawi, somebody, a genius at a young age. They say by the age of 7 he'd memorized the Quran. He began studying at that time what was the normal method of ilm. He studied with his father, studied with other ulama locally, studied in Madrasa Rahimiyya. There were other people teaching Madrasa Rahimiyya as well, obviously. Studied the major Hanafi texts in fiqh, usul, lugha, tafsir, this, that. Then studied the section of hadith as well in Madrasa Rahimiyya. He graduates at the age of 15 from Madrasa Rahimiyya. Still becomes incredibly devoted. At that time, what was also very powerful in India as well was tasawwuf. Was incredibly powerful in the sense that it was anything else was not really known. That you had to like, everybody was devoted to some particular tariqah, some particular thing. So he also, Shah Waliullah Dahlawi, also gets pretty involved with the tariqah of his age. He gets pretty into that thing where he can start accepting bay'ah from people and starts taking bay'ah from people and doing things like that as well. All the while increasing his own knowledge in things. He starts teaching, he starts doing things. But this hasn't really changed massive. Nothing, the tsunami hasn't come yet. यार tsunami क्यों नहीं आई? It's like after the elections with Imran Khan. यार tsunami क्यों नहीं आई यार? So the thing is that the tsunami hasn't come yet. Yes, he's going on, there's this little interest, it's in the air, yes, there's this fascination with hadith, there's a bit more study going on. But what happens at a later stage, when he reaches the age of 30, what Shaykh Shah Waliullah Dahlawi does would change the course of history for India to come. What he does in apparently and quite ironically, what would rescue and save India in the future, at that stage, unbeknown to him, was for him to leave India.
Really? Wow.
See, a step which seems so opposing, it seems on one hand he's actually left the entire country and gone, would actually serve as a salvific, something that would become the salvation of that land in the future. He leaves India and goes to the Hijaz. He becomes very fascinated with hadith, as was already known, as was perhaps inculcated, was perhaps put into him by his father, this love for hadith. He goes to the Haramain and obviously does his Hajj and he stays there and he starts to learn. And he has his famous teachers, Abu Tahir al-Madani, al-Kurdi, and he has many other, he has Maliki teachers and all sorts. He starts to study once again he had already studied certain books of hadith in India, but now he starts to study all these books with these people. He studies the Musnad of Ahmad, he studies the Muwatta of Imam Malik with the Maghariba, he starts to learn, he starts to really get into it, and he loves what he's learning. He can't get enough of it. He is so immersed in this that he makes an intention that he won't go back to India, that he would stay now in the Hijaz, that this was, what they say, Dallatul Manshuta. This was what his lost property almost. This is what he had longed for and he was finally at. He was loving it, learning so much, getting into Jarh wa Ta'deel, getting into the ilm of Rijal, learning also about diverse fiqh further. He had some Shafi'i teachers, taking understandings from them. They also say at this stage, he began to take a liking to the works of Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah and also his teacher, Ibn Taymiyyah. That Shah Waliullah, they say, became quite fascinated with the works of Ibn Taymiyyah as well, and saw certain resemblances with what he felt, that what Ibn Taymiyyah had gone through in his age. He felt that those problems were very similar to the land of India in his time. That people had turned away, that there was immense bid'ah, people were, they'd really gone into all these other, whether you want to say sciences, and to mention anything, like to mention hadith, you would be criticized. That why do you think you're going to hadith? This is what the fatwa says, this. So he felt it, and the more he learned, the more he felt sure that I won't go back to India. That this is fine where I am. And he says he thoroughly enjoyed every single day, really, of his study there. He spent at least over 2 years in the Hijaz, doing nothing but absorbing ilm, gaining several ijazat, and all sorts. They say that he he always had in his heart something, like he wanted to do something though. You know, like, you know, some people, they have this desire to do something, they're doers. They're not just complacent with, I can just sit here. I want to achieve something in life as well. That Shah Waliullah had this about him. Now they say that he writes actually, that he had a dream. That he had a dream that the land of India becomes engulfed by kufr. And every point of it kind of is overtaken by this darkness. In his dream, to the extent that kufr is there and it destroys, and he mentions Ajmer. He mentions Ajmer. He says that the darbar, or the place of Ajmer, is also destroyed, and kufr has enveloped the land of India. And he says in this dream, he then becomes present. And he has what he describes, or he is being defined as what is called Qa'imuddin, the one by whom the deen will stand. So where he is going, he is dispersing the darkness of kufr. So, and he continues to go, and he's with certain people in his dream. He's not on his own. And he is going and going until he kind of disperses and disposes of kufr right up until Ajmer. And where he's going, this light of Iman has kind of spread and permeated with him. He says that this dream kind of redefined his thought processes and his way of thinking about the future. Because he was pretty content on staying in the Hijaz. But now, all of a sudden, he had this thought that maybe I should go back to India. And maybe this is part of my mission. That I need to, the khidmah that I want to do, because he wanted to do something. But what he was thinking of, I know, maybe I'll author some books, or I'll do this, or I'll do that in the Hijaz. Maybe that's not where I'm meant to be. Maybe my desired maqam is in Hind. So he sets back and turns his sail towards India. Allahu Akbar. Setting in motion a series of events that would have changed and will change the face of Muslim India to our very age. He returns to Delhi and begins to teach. They say he spends the next 30 odd years in teaching. Teaching hadith upon hadith upon hadith. That he starts to combat these khurafat. He still kind of associates himself with the Hanafi madhab, although he begins to write about not sticking to what is like this blind and super rigid taqleed. He says that people should embrace the concept of hadith. That they should be following hadith, that we are following, and the fiqh should follow hadith, and in certain circumstances, if we find it doesn't, then the hadith is not like an enemy to us. This is the source of our guidance. So he starts setting out these waves. He starts like teaching, he starts authorizing, giving ijazat in hadith, authorizing other people to go off and teach. Decade after decade after decade. He starts to speak about the maqasid of the Sharia. His very famous book, Hujjatullah al-Baligha, this is what it's addressing, the maqasid of the Sharia. He also really, you could say, infuses the love of the Muwatta in India once again. Something he gains from his teacher in the Haram. Now, prior to him, although the Muwatta was known undoubtedly in India, but the love that Shah Waliullah Dahlawi has for the Muwatta was unparalleled. He places the Muwatta if not equal, then above the Sahihain. And that's the position, because he sees this as obviously being the book of Imam Malik. Now, this effort of Shah Waliullah Dahlawi, what it gives rise to, you see, in his own age, it's pushing huge, it's pushing numbers and numbers of students. It's cementing this understanding that we need to be reconnected with hadith. During Shah Waliullah's absence, and even prior to his absence, as he was growing up, and in maybe the years that preceded him, he saw in his environment not only were the khurafat and the bid'ah that were overwhelming, but with them came the heresies of certain sects like the Shia. And he found this problematic, and he found that the reason that the Muslims weren't generally in a position to refute a lot of them was because of their disconnection to hadith. You see, we in essence, the main body of Muslims are the people of Sunnah, Ahl Sunnah. And that Sunnah is documented in the hadith. If we are not a people of hadith, then we cannot truly be Ahl Sunnah. Because how are we to revive or even argue or even present or even believe in something that we don't actually teach or propagate or even understand? So what he also does, he teaches in the Madrasa Rahimiyya, his father's institute. He has 4 children who serve as pivotal people. Because you see, what a great Imam does isn't just have huge, hoard huge amounts of knowledge which he passes on. He does that surely, but what he also does is he prepares people that can take the baton further. If you haven't prepared people that can take it on, then you fundamentally failed. Because although you will be a bleep, you would have been some form of, there will be, yes, a little wave, but it will shortly die after you. So something that, although the people before him, you had Sheikh Husamuddin, Al-Fatani, you had Al-Muttaqi, Sheikh Husamuddin Al-Muttaqi, you had Sheikh Al-Fatani, you had these people creating certain waves, Sheikh Muhaddith Abdul Haq Al-Dahlawi. But what you didn't have was people setting proponents after them that would inherit and continue this legacy. So what Shah Waliullah Dahlawi, his 4 children, Sheikh Abdul Aziz Al-Dahlawi is a very key person who continues the legacy of Shah Waliullah Dahlawi. He is huge. He is the funnel, really, that from his father, this huge energy is directed mainly, obviously the other children are important too and they play a role, but Shah Abdul Aziz Al-Dahlawi is the projector of that.
The father of Ismail Al-Dahlawi.
Yeah. Now, you've got his other brothers, you've got Sheikh Rafi ad-Din. Okay. You have got Sheikh Abdul Ghani Al-Dahlawi. Abdul Ghani is also an important, they were all important, but what Shah Abdul Ghani also is a key transmitter and plays a huge role in transmitting the sciences. His 4th son, there's Rafi ad-Din, there's Shah Abdul Aziz. I've forgotten I think it may have been something like Rukn ad-Din, but his 4th one, Abdul Ghani, is the important one. The key of his children, the key players or the key role that is kind of given to and led by is by Shah Abdul Aziz. Shah Abdul Aziz, after his father, takes his role in Madrasa al-Rahimiyya. The people that Shah Abdul Aziz produces become legends. Legends. And obviously Shah Abdul Aziz couldn't have just come from thin air. He's standing on the shoulders of his father, Shah Waliullah Dahlawi. The people he produces, Shah Abdul Aziz, and he teaches for decades, the people he produces are the likes like his other nephew, Shah Muhammad Ishaq, who eventually takes over after him. But he produces the likes of Mia, what they call Mia Nazir Hussain, Sheikh Nazir Hussain, known as Sheikh al-Kul fil Kul, who becomes one of the key proponents of the Ahlul Hadith movement. He produces, who also from his students, people like Sheikh Shamsul Haq al-Azimabadi from Azimabad, which is modern day Patna, by the way, in India, used to be known as Azimabad back then, who's also a key student of Sheikh Nazir Hussain, but he also studies with him. You see, what he's setting in motion are not just, these people are not just, oh, this is just a scholar in hadith. These people in themselves become powerhouses. Shah Abdul Aziz also teaches Sheikh Awlad al-Qanuji, who is the father of Nawab Sadiq Hasan Khan. Sheikh Nazir Hussain, or who is known as, they used to call him Mia Saab back then as well. This Mia Saab, by the way, was a laqab that was given, usually they would call at that time the household of Shah Waliullah Dahlawi. They would call them, Mia Saab, and or Shah Saab at that time. They start to call Sheikh Nazir Hussain that as well, just because he was so tight with Sheikh Shah Abdul Aziz al-Dahlawi. This Sheikh Nazir Hussain spends up to, they say, almost 60 years teaching hadith. The likes that he pushes out, I mean, he cements and solidifies people like Sheikh Shamsul Haq al-Azimabadi, who has a major commentary on Abu Dawood. People like Sheikh Abdul Rahman al-Mubarakpuri, who has a commentary on Tirmidhi. These are all his students. Many others, amongst Sheikh Nawab Sadiq Hasan Khan, who has a huge influence, and later on obviously in the region of Bhopal in India, in hadith. All of those figures being key figures that contribute to the Ahlul Hadith movement. He also, but he is a contemporary, he's a direct student of Shah Abdul Aziz. Shah Abdul Aziz's other student, a contemporary of him, is Muhammad Ishaq al-Dahlawi. Muhammad Ishaq al-Dahlawi is the grandson of Shah Waliullah Dahlawi. But from the daughter, he's from, so he's a nephew of Abdul Aziz, but through his sister. Now, Sheikh Muhammad Ishaq al-Dahlawi, he goes on to be the teacher of people like Sheikh Imdadullah al-Muhajir al-Makki, people like Sheikh Qasim Nanotwi, people like, I mean, these people, you can see this what then sets off, and even most of the ulama, including Sheikh Rashid Ahmad Gangohi, the leaders or the founders of the Deoband sub-school, they find their traces here. Even Imdadullah al-Muhajir al-Makki is from the teachers of Raza Ahmad Khan Bareilwi. You can see this whole link coming back to this household of Delhi. From amongst the teachers of Shah Abdul Aziz, from amongst the students of Shah Abdul Aziz, I mean, who he's produced, Muhammad Ishaq, are also the likes of, who is a key person, Shah Ahmad ibn Irfan al-Bareilwi. This Sheikh Shah Ahmad, or Sheikh Ahmad ibn Irfan al-Bareilwi, isn't a Bareilwi, I know he may be called a Bareilwi because he was from the area of Bareilly, but he is known as a Mujaddid in himself. This person that they produce was a close ally of, a very close friend of Shah Ismail ad-Dehlvi. He was somebody that he was a scholar that they produced, had a huge concern about what was going on in India. Huge concern with by this time the colonial powers were there. Obviously in Shah Waliullah Dehlawi's time they weren't. Shah Waliullah Dehlawi, they arrived during his time, but they don't arrive with such power. Shah Waliullah Dehlawi himself was born within the last few remaining years of Aurangzeb's rulership. So when Aurangzeb passes away in the mid 1700s, he was, they say, about 4 years old. So although it was the decline of the Mughal Empire, but the colonial powers hadn't gained this type of vicious strength that they would in the years to come. But by the time of Shah Abdul Aziz, it becomes huge. I mean, they've become huge. The colonial powers, the English at that time had really taken over and really set ground. This is why the concerns of people had become massively kind of weightsome, really, that they were so bearing on the people, that thinking that what's going on, that now all of a sudden they couldn't do a certain, so many Islamic things were banned and barred, and they couldn't teach and they couldn't do this. Things had become so dangerous for years. Nobody had ever, for years, nobody had performed Hajj. The fatwa of the people was Hajj isn't fard. Just as the fatwa was many centuries ago in what part of the world? In Al-Andalus. Many centuries ago, that Hajj wasn't fard. Because to go there would mean to get killed. The ways were too dangerous. So therefore it was no longer a fard. Sheikh Ahmad ibn Irfan, he had this concern in him that we need to do something. That leaving Islam like this, we need to kind of set about we need to get rid of these khurafat, but also this tyranny. Now his teacher, Abdul Aziz al-Dehlawi, and also Muhammad Ishaq had kind of set in him this love for the Sunnah and to revive it in its purest form. In fact, Shah Abdul Aziz al-Dehlawi, when Sheikh Ahmad al-Brelvi had graduated, after his graduation, because although he did benefit also from Muhammad Ishaq, but he did actually benefit directly from Shah Abdul Aziz. When he graduated and was a scholar, and they were having their type of conversations, and they was also teaching them tarbiyah, they say that he was teaching him, and at that time I told you tasawwuf was heavily prevalent over the entire subcontinent, and that doesn't, and when we say tasawwuf, sometimes there's people who may practice it within the guidance of the Sharia and within the parameters, and that's fine, and that's a different topic altogether. But as it was practiced then, and as influenced by perhaps a lot of Hindu rituals and things like this, it was considered to be overwhelmed by bid'at and khurafat and things which were contrary to the Sunnah. Now, but when this is so prevalent, it becomes the norm. So here's Shah Abdul Aziz teaching Sheikh Ahmad, and he teaches him this thing. They're going over this concept of tasawwur al-Sheikh, that when you're doing dhikr, you should do, there's this thing of to facilitate dhikr, you can do tasawwur al-Sheikh. Like you can picture your Sheikh. And this is somehow an i'ana upon the dhikr of Allah, helps the dhikr of Allah. They say at this point that Sheikh Ahmad said that I refuse to accept this. He said, I see no difference in this and in shirk. And Shah Abdul Aziz first tried to discuss with him. He said, yeah, but this isn't shirk, this is a form of assistance and this. And he said, but have you not been teaching us all these ahadith? He says, weren't these from you? about reviving the sunnah, about reviving what is pure tawheed and moving away from these bid'at and moving away from stuff like this. He says, don't you just see this as a gateway to the flooding of what would just lead to what we've got in India, of people doing all sorts around tombs and graves and this and that. And they say at this that Shah Abdul Aziz, he kind of embraced Sheikh Ahmed and he kissed him on his forehead. And he said that, that truly that you have like absorbed the teachings of the Sunnah and that its fruits will manifest in the future. That I see in you that great, like a great promise for the Muslims of Hindustan. And Sheikh Ahmed, he is the one who set about what would become a huge resistance movement to the tyrannical colonialization that was taking place. It was Sheikh Ahmed who once again revived this fight for freedom. Who? No, Sheikh Ahmed Brilwi, not Raza Ahmed Khan Brilwi. Sheikh Ahmed ibn Irfan al-Brilwi.
Is this name Sayyid Ahmed Brilwi? Was that a different one?
Sayyid Ahmed Brilwi, same one, yes. Shah, what they do in India and Pakistan, the term Shah and Sayyid are interchangeable. So they call anybody who's a Sayyid Shah, Shah Saab. So Shah Ahmed or Sheikh Ahmed, Sayyid Ahmed is the same one. Now what he did is he wanted to trigger off this movement of resistance to this oppression by the colonials at that time. And he thought about it, and then what could be a greater way to set this off, to mark the birth of it, the genesis, rather than, what could be a greater way than to break the taboo of not doing Hajj? They say that he announced that this fatwa does not stand, that Hajj is not an obligation, that Hajj is an obligation upon the Muslims of Hindustan. They say he wrote far and wide to the people within India, that he announced and taught that we will, not only is it an obligation, that I will lead this obligation, that come and join me. And he sent his writings and his message as far as it could go within Hindustan. To the extent, Allahu Akbar, that he said that any that comes to us to fulfill this obligation and doesn't have the means, he says, I will take it upon myself to provide his means. Allahu Akbar. Ulaika abai faji'ni bimithli. Idha jama'atna ya jarirul majama. These were the legends of Hindustan. That he says that anybody who you don't have the means, if you're saying finances are a problem, I will finance your Hajj for you. What more do you ask for now? And they say he set off with him his close companions, and they started off, and at first hundreds joined them, and they continued to move through India. They were going south and they were going to Calcutta, and from Calcutta they would catch the boat across. Now, every place they stopped at, they would set up camp. They would stay at the villages, at the cities, at the towns, or whether there were cities, they would spend a short while, they would teach people. They would create students where they went. Spread this teaching of we need to return to the Sunnah. We need to teach the books of Sunnah. They would actually teach the books of Hadith where they were. They would correct the type of bid'at that were taking place, the khurafat that had spread, the absence of reliance or the void when it came to tawakkul upon Allah. They would once again fill that void with yaqeen, cement people's aqidah. When they reached Calcutta, they say there were over 7,500 people that were with him going to Hajj. And he came back successfully. And from there he announced his harakah, his movement for resistance against what was the barbaric colonial powers at the time. This movement where he says we would revive jihad within the land of Hindustan to free us from what was these oppressive foreign powers. And when he comes back to India, his movement has such an impact. He becomes so, with him was Shah Muhammad Ismail ad-Dahlawi, obviously the grandson, the son of Abdul Aziz and the grandson of Shah Waliullah ad-Dahlawi. They set about, they write to people, they gain they gain a sense of authority, a sense of presence. Their movement starts to expand. At the time, the British were ruling significant parts of India, and the central places within parts of Kashmir and parts of Punjab heavily were ruled by Raja Ranjit Singh, who, history kind of shows that he was ruthless towards the Muslims. And they say that Sayyid Ahmed or Sheikh Ahmed ibn Irfan, he took it upon himself to kind of liberate some of these lands. And initially, when he couldn't get the support he wanted in places like Calcutta and other places, they say he went to what was at that point what would fall today as the northwest frontier of Pakistan, that what they call generally like the Alaqa Ghair or Pakhtunkhwa today in Pakistan. That region at that time wasn't conquered by the British, and it was a land that fell between Afghanistan and Hindustan. And he'd heard good things about the people, so he went there with Shah Ismail. Shah Muhammad Ismail, what he does is he accompanies Sheikh Ahmed or Sayyid Ahmed, and they go with a huge following. This movement, some people had questioned how successful was this movement. They go and set up in the northwest frontier, and there's a kind of there was a certain you could say certain battles or certain type of they run in with Raja Ranjit Singh's forces. To any people who had casted doubt on the to the efficacy, how effective was Sheikh Ahmed, he was that effective that within a short while, Raja Ranjit Singh himself offers a truce to Sheikh Ahmed. Now, you wouldn't just be offering a truce if somebody was meaningless to you. He himself, not just a truce, he says, I will give you a certain amount of land that falls by Balochistan and these parts, and you can rule whatever you want there. You can have that. But just call it quits. He actually sends a waft, a delegation to Sheikh Ahmed. Amongst them, several people. He has in it his famous his own son as well. I forgot his son's name. He has somebody called Sher Singh in there. He has another. There's a famous person he sends as well, one of his wazirs, who actually converts to Islam because he's so impressed with the belief and the conviction that Sheikh Ahmed has, that he finds it so wow. Maybe because they go there to discuss and they say, look, we'll give you this and we'll give you a certain amount. Okay, is it finances you want, or you want this, or you want that? And they say that he honors the delegation so so respectfully. They have a Muslim amongst them as well. They have actually a Frenchman amongst them and a British, an Englishman amongst them as well in that delegation that has come from Raja Ranjit Singh. He honors them and takes care of them, and obviously gives them food and personally sees to their needs. But yet when they ask him to quit his fight for freedom, he says that, look, I think you've misunderstood. He says that we're not here for money, or we're not here risking this for that. He says that this is about serving Allah, that removing tyranny, removing oppression, that this is our belief. He says, otherwise we don't have a problem. You know, we're not here like I don't have a problem with you, and I'm personally serving them. That this and the way he would serve people, and this was reported about him, that Sheikh Abul Hasan al-Nadwi writes about him expansively, and he says that even that this was known about him, the way he would do khidmah of people, even when during their struggle for their fights and things like this, the way he would personally see to people, and he would make it a collective duty upon all, that everybody has to do khidmah. And that initially Sheikh Abul Hasan al-Nadwi writes that some people, when they came to join his movement, found this quite shocking, that they saw themselves above this, that I'm not going to be washing somebody's clothes, or I'm not going to be doing this for people. I mean, you know, okay, I'll do my own, but why other people? But this was what he had set there, that we all serve each other. So this was the type of influence that he has, and he does gain an incredible momentum where he was. He was even, some of Raja Ranjit Singh had an attempt to have him poisoned, which was unsuccessful. Following which, eventually, there was a sense of betrayal, where he was betrayed. That what had happened was the areas he was in the northwest, some of the people there, the tribal people, had many customs which were very anti-Islam. Like they would sell their daughters for marriage. They would do things like, a lot of them were to do with matrimonial ceremonies, and there were other things as well, several bid'at that were taking place where, for example, when a person died, there was a certain custom that took place in where you place the Quran, and everybody passes the Quran around in a particular circle, and then they pass the money around in a certain, and then they donate this money, and there were certain people who were known as they were the mustashar, they were the people who were like an authority in religion, and they were just strict fuqaha who had learned a certain amount of Hanafi fiqh, and that's all they knew. And they kind of were, they would kind of frown upon this thing of hadith. They saw it as so this culture was prevalent as well in this northwest frontier where Sheikh Ahmad was. So he started to challenge some of these issues that were going on, and started to say this isn't how the sunnah should be, and the sunnah is like this. You can't sell your daughters. You can't do things like this. You can't it can't be about having huge prices on daughters' heads, and it can't be about this, and it can't be about that, and you can't have these bid'at, and you can't. What happened? This disturbed, they say, a lot of people. Whether those people colluded with Raja Ranjit Singh's forces or not, I suppose is there's theories, and people there's no conclusive evidence. But what happened was there was a particular day on which some of those people from that province area had a coordinated attack on the people of Sayyid Ahmad at different places, but coordinated simultaneously. So in one go, several attacks took place on different localities, and this killed several hundred people that belonged to, and people that were influential, that were part of this movement, this liberation movement of Sayyid Ahmad. This really damaged the morale of his people, of his movement. And they say that he was really taken aback by what had happened, that he thought, okay, this isn't a safe place to be anymore, and we need to leave this place. That he set off to migrate to Kashmir. They say he was en route to Kashmir, and he was going to Muzaffarabad, or towards that part. And it was at this point that where he got him and his people, his supporters of this movement, they were migrating, that they were setting off, that they were ambushed by Raja Ranjit Singh's people. And the attack initially was by actual Muslims. It was by the tribal people of that area of where he was, but it was in different localities and vicinity. It wasn't an attack in one place. It was a coordinated attack that took place in several places at once, where these people were well established. And it was so devastating to them because they didn't expect it at all from the Muslims, you see. So when it happened, it shook them to that extent that they said, we're no longer safe here. So we need to go to a new place where we can set up, and it obviously realized he had too many antagonist forces working dynamics against him. So it's when he set off with his people to Kashmir that en route he got ambushed by Raja Ranjit Singh's people, his troops, and he was martyred. And as was Muhammad Shah Ismail. But it wasn't, this movement didn't stop there. There's one of the sons of Rafi'uddin ad-Dahlawi, one of the grandson, another grandson of Shah Waliullah, came, and eventually he kind of takes over and breathes life into this movement. And this movement then also gains huge support from, there was a family known as the Ali Shah family from India. I believe they may have been from Hyderabad, but they were already involved with Sayyid Ahmad before, but with his death they become massively involved. In fact, there were two brothers, sons of the household, known as Inayat Ali and Wilayat Ali. Paki's gotta rhyme the names. Right, so the thing is, Inayat Ali and Wilayat Ali, these two figures become a huge force for driving forward, and they also finance this whole liberation movement as well, to the extent that they lead devastating blows to Raja Ranjit Singh, and even quite successful on many accounts. They take back huge amounts of Kashmir. They take back several regions from Raja Ranjit Singh. And then obviously the British do get involved again, and that goes on. And that continues as a type of movement. But coming back to the Dehlawi household, that this whole thing is set in motion by who? On the other hand, you've got people like Muhammad Ishaq, who also teach, like I said, who end up influencing people like Qasim Nanotwi, Rashid Ahmed Gangohi, who then influence many people like Anwar Shah Kashmiri, and whether it's going to be it's going to be so much, Sheikh al-Hind, and whether it's going to be also Ashraf Ali Thanwi and many other people who also contribute significantly to the science of hadith. Whether it's going to be commentaries on Sahih al-Bukhari, or whether it's the likes of Sheikh Idris Kandalwi is influenced by these people who go on to set up the whole Tablighi movement. Maulana Zakaria Kandalwi is also massively influenced. Here he is taught his commentary on the Muwatta of Imam Muslim, on the Muwatta of Imam Malik, Awjazul Masalik. From India is unprecedented. Obviously you've got centuries ago the Muslims of especially the Maliki populated world had contributed huge commentaries, but nobody in India had done something like that. A huge movement is set up. Even if you're going to look at the likes of people that descend, I mentioned already, that come from Nazir Ahmed, from Nazir Hussain, people that, they call him Shaykh al-Kull fil Kull. That's how huge they say his knowledge was. But he produces, like I mentioned, Shams al-Haq al-Azimabadi, who has one of the most profound commentaries on Abu Dawud that is available in the Muslim world ever. Even Badlul Majhood is from India. So you're seeing this whole legacy of scholarship being created. Nawab Sadiq Hassan Khan, somebody that goes on to write his own works, and although he doesn't, that is more of the Ahlul Hadith movement, but still they breathe huge life into reviving what was the Sunnah in India. These people, they had diverse methodologies then. You know, it's not that. So, for example, where you've got these people like Nawab Sadiq Hassan Khan, and let's say if you've got at the time other people like Muhammad Ishaq, his students, let's say from Qasim Nanotwi or other people, it wasn't that these people saw eye to eye on everything, but it wasn't that they now had some type of hatred towards each other. You know, he produced Imdadullah al-Muhajir al-Makki, who is the teacher of Raza Ahmad Khan Brelvi. You're seeing that these people, it's not necessary, many of them, including the Ahlul Hadith, were heavily still immersed in elements of tasawwuf that other fuqaha ulama amongst them may have rejected. But they personally didn't. So it's interesting. It's not, you see, this movement wasn't what later people kind of label this as some type of a Wahhabi movement and some type of a movement of people against the Prophet. These were diverse people. What the movement was, it was a movement of Sunnah and reviving Hadith and Sunnah. Led by diverse people, some who stuck to a madhab, some who didn't stick to a madhab, some who were hardcore, very trenched in the Hanafi. I mean, I would say many of the ulama, like, you know, that Shaykhul Hind, or you're going to say Anwar Shah Kashmiri or Ashraf Ali Thanwi, all these people were very, Qasim Nanut, entrenched in Hanafi fiqh. They go on to, produce people like Yusuf bin Nuri with his Ma'arif as-Sunan and these type of. But the point is, who you would see these influential people like Muhammad Shafi, and then coming down to our own day and age, and all these madaris that are around today. All of these, every single place, people studying Dawratul Hadith, studying the books of Hadith from cover to cover. Although in many places people may not have the full spirit, but in some places they do. The source of all of this goes back to Shah Waliullah Dahlawi and the household of Delhi. All of these movements, whether it came off and whether the work that was done in fiqh, especially more important because fiqh was already there, the work that was done in hadith, the commentaries on almost look at that amount of commentaries that were done on Bukhari, Sahih Bukhari. I mean, Anwar Shah Kashmiri has a commentary on Sahih Bukhari, commentary on Sahih Muslim by Mufti Shafi and Mufti Taqi, commentary on Tirmidhi by Abdurrahman Mubarakpuri, commentary on Abu Dawood by Shams al-Haq al-Azimabadi, commentary on Ibn Majah, or the notes by Abu Hassan as-Sindi. The point is that these works were being the commentary on the Muwatta by Sheikh Zakaria. These are a massive contribution. We didn't even mention that from the students of really people like Nazir Ahmad Hussain, from their students, you get people who taught the likes of Abdul Hayy al-Lakhnawi. A huge, once again, and somebody that contributes massively to not only hadith but critiques. He has his commentaries, work on the Muwatta, but also to Ilm al-Rijal. He comments significantly. He has his also his Rafa' wa Takmil, where he raises invaluable points that people highlight that, whoa, the works of people like Shaykh Abdul Hayy al-Lakhnawi are, they're indispensable. People like Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda speaking about them, Zahid al-Kawthari highlighting them. All of this has been done in the land of Hindustan. This was India. This is what it had produced. Yet people kind of lost all of that and got caught into ridiculous, just factions and this type of sectarianism, forgetting about, that their roots were actually just one. During the time of, the movement that we spoke about of Sayyid Ahmad, and the successors that continued it and that continued to kind of spread and struggle for that freedom fight. You see, it's during their time that the rise of people like Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani came about. where he initially, first of all, sets about in his, and this comes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the dars, where he first of all sets about saying that, oh, he's the Mahdi in the late 1890s. And by 1901, he declares himself a Rasul, a Nabi, debunking much of what was in the Sunnah, saying that we don't need to follow the hadith. Since I'm a new legislator, I overrule this. I overrule the concept of this, the concept of that, the ruling of this, or whether it was jihad, or whether it was other things, or elements of zakat, or whatever he kind of ruled in. You can see that this threat once again pushes its head. His fitna attempts to emerge. Once again echoed again in India, decades later, a few decades later, by Parvez, trying to say that we don't need, not of Nabuwa, but saying we don't need hadith, or we doubt its authenticity, that it's fine to go ahead with the Quran. So you see that the ulama of India rising to this challenge, the work and the commitment that they did in the preservation of hadith, for it to reach us today, to the extent that people have said, when you look at their efforts, all of that was done. I mean, I didn't even go into mentioning how that triggered off Sheikh Saharanpuri, and how it triggered off many others who contributed their works, and what led to Nadwatul Ulum, one of a significant institute of learning today, recognized worldwide. Obviously, key people like Abul Hasan al-Nadwi, who were given international awards by Muslims for their contribution, for their perception and analysis. I mean, his book, ماذا خسر العالم بانحطاط المسلمين, what has the world lost with the downfall of the Muslims, it was given international awards by several Muslim bodies. That's how renowned his stuff was. He was invited to speak as a thinker, as an analyst. It continues today, Nadwatul Ulum, to produce people who are experts in language, experts in hadith studies, even till today. All of this going back, finding its traces, its roots, going back to that one man, Shah Waliullah Dahlawi. All of our chains in hadith today, our chain, my chain in hadith, it goes through Shah Waliullah Dahlawi. All of the chains today in India, in Indo-Pak today in Pakistan as well. What led to the formation of Pakistan itself, with the foresight by people like Allama Iqbal and these people, was the efforts by several people like Sayyid Ahmad and the movements that they had led, which finds its roots with Shah Waliullah Dahlawi. How much happened and what changed the entire face of India as we know it, goes back to that one decision of Shah Waliullah Dahlawi returning to India. So there is a huge legacy.
So do you think you can read us your chain of hadith? At least one of them.
Yeah, inshallah.
At the end of this class.
Okay, inshallah, I can go. I'll have to get it, but you can go through it, inshallah. So I mean, this is what I wanted to really just highlight, that we, especially, and why this is important for us, is that most of the Muslims here today are of that heritage. I mean, in essence, we're all from Hindustan as it was then. Now, this wasn't a land in the last, when most of the Muslim world kind of went quiet when it came to the work of Sunnah and Hadith. This was a land that once again rose at that time, revived the works of people like Rabi' ibn Sabih, right? That these type of one of the first person people to author in Hadith substantially, where he dies, becomes a land where in the last centuries of Islam begins to author substantially in this science. Today, unfortunately, some of us, we've become so distracted by the type of sectarianism of whether it's going to be Raza Ahmad Khan Brailvi and the Deobandis and this is really in itself just nonsense. All of them, their roots go back to people like Muhammad Ishaq ad-Dahlawi, who teaches, all of them share common teachers. In essence, in legacy. Whether it's, Sheikh Imdadullah al-Muhajir al-Makki, or whether it's his teacher Muhammad Ishaq al-Dahlawi, whether it's his teacher Abdul Aziz al-Dahlawi, whether it's his teacher Shah Waliullah al-Dahlawi. And one thing that you learn then,
Sheikh, was there like you mentioned that all these movements all trace back to the same teachers, common teachers? Was there a particular event which caused them to drift apart, or is it progress over time?
I mean, if you're saying all these, you see, these movements were separate, but they weren't never like, they didn't see each other as like adversaries. Like some people may have gone into this, other people have gone into that. But what it awoke in people was a concern to do something for the ummah of Hindustan at the time. Now, this deep-rooted concern is what was triggered by the household of Delhi. Now, it's not about they were different, like Nazir Hussain, Sheikh Nazir Hussain wasn't, like he didn't, obviously he was like the founding father of the Ahl Hadith movement in India, but he didn't have this issue with, let's say, people who were Hanafi and the Shuyukh of his time, like the way it is today. He had many people who were very near and dear to him that were Hanafi, just his own teachers would be Hanafi, just as some of his students were Hanafi, just as some of the Hanafiya took from people who were maybe not so Hanafi, and they gave to people like that as well. So the differences were there. The intensity or the hatred didn't exist. The hatred really, I mean, what we see today, and I'm listing it. I mean, the key split between whether it's going to be the Deobandiyya or the Brelviya or what is today the Ahl Hadith in the Indo-Pak. These three key differences trace their roots back to the same people that taught them. And the differences did exist then, or some differences. Okay, later differences emerge again, but some differences, the seeds of their differences were there. It wasn't that, like a key example was like Sayyid Ahmad disagreeing with his Sheikh Abdul Aziz about Tasawwur al-Sheikh and saying that to me this seems like shirk. Yet his Sheikh Shah Abdul Aziz is the one that is doing it. But he's not, you see, they're disagreeing, they're discussing. Whether Sheikh Abdul Aziz continued to do it, Allahu A'lam, but many people probably did. But the point is that it wasn't about, he didn't say, Sayyid Ahmad didn't say, oh, I think you're a mushrik and I'm boycotting this and I'm going like this and I don't want anything to do with you guys, because, or when he thought about why have people abandoned Hajj and I'm disagreeing with this fatwa, he didn't think, oh, all of you guys are murtad for disagreeing with this, or you're fasiqs, or you're dal mudil for debunking Hajj, for Fardiyatul Hajj. He wrote in defense of it, encouraged, lectured, called people towards Hajj, and then said, you know what, I'll take it upon myself to finance you and help you. The point is how you go about indifferent. Now, what's happened, unfortunately, in the last century has really severed and split the divergence so far and wide that people today, it's become an iman and adm and kufr issue. That you're Muslim or you're not Muslim. SubhanAllah, imagine if Sheikh Muhammad Ishaq or Abdul Aziz al-Dahlawi or Shah Waliullah was to hear that. I mean, I don't think he'd be beside himself in disbelief. He wouldn't accept that. No way that they would, amongst themselves, it would become an issue of iman and kufr. So this is why I highlighted it in saying that, look, that India has produced huge efforts, and in the hope that it can be an encouragement for us to think, yeah, why don't we carry on? Why don't we take an interest in hadith, in sunnah today? Because really what defines Ahl Sunnah is our association with the science of sunnah. So I mean, really that was what I wanted to really share with us today. It was a bit, I mean, the whole purpose of these studies is that they are isolated in themselves. It's not necessarily a particular text. We're going through different aspects of Usul Hadith, and one of the things we're taking a look at is evolution and the impact it's had. One thing we could see is that, look, up until the 10th century, there's a huge effort that takes place and it crystallizes. After the 10th century till our age, it almost becomes quite I mean, regressive isn't the word, but it becomes quite dormant. But one thing we start to see is from the 10th century onwards, we start to see a practical side of it emerging in the Indian subcontinent that is unparalleled anywhere else in the world, from the 900s onwards, with the people we saw, Hussam al-Din al-Muttaqi, onwards his student Al-Fatani, and we see Sheikh Muhaddith Abdul Haq al-Dahlawi giving, and the father of Abdul Rahim al-Dahlawi, and his son Shah Waliullah, who really at his hands, this whole thing, you see what he sets in motion in a butterfly effect is a tsunami that would change the entire face of India as they knew it. And in my understanding, Allahu A'lam, that dream, that where he returns light to the places that had been engulfed and enveloped by darkness and kufr, in my understanding was the connection with the Sunnah and the Hadith again. Because everywhere throughout Hindustan today, and throughout, and I'm saying that broadly speaking, covering Pakistan as well, that we have, wherever you have the chain of the Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, it goes through Shaykh Shah Waliullah Dahlawi. So inshallah, may Allah subhanahu
Your
Yeah.
chain, your sanad.
yeah, shall I go?
Yeah, if you get it.
Oh, if I go get it, yeah, is that right?
All right, shall we start?
Should we not stand?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. All right, so speaking about isnad and speaking about the fruitful and highly beneficial work of the ulama al-Hind, the scholars of hadith, with regards to the sunnah and the hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In light of that, I'd like to go through my own ijazah bil isnad, my own isnad, share that with you guys. This goes through the great household of Delhi, as you'll see. Shah Waliullah, the legend who we just spoke about, and his legacy that he left behind, which still is with us and in fact permeates through the entire Indian subcontinent today. That you will not find any sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that is being taught and documented, except it goes through a chain going through Shah Waliullah ad-Dahlawi. So this one, I'm just going to share one isnad. Obviously, as it gets further up, the names, depending on the book, will always vary because they may go through different people. The pivotal point is Sheikh Shah Waliullah ad-Dahlawi in all of the chains. Now, this particular one is for Sahih Bukhari, since we spoke a bit about it in one of the lessons. So this one, I had been given ijazah. It does mention that the Sheikh speaking here was Sheikh Abdul Hamid, who was Sheikh al-Hadith in Jami' Binoria, and he was one of the teachers of Sahih Bukhari. Now, although many of them gave us ijazat in all their books, but he's just one person that I'm reading from. So it says, قد ختم علي صحيح البخاري ختمة بالتفقه, that he completed with me Sahih Bukhari, a completion with understanding of fiqh. وطلب مني أن أجيزه فأجزته, and says, so he asked me, sought from me that I give him ijazah, so I did. And يحدث, that he may teach hadith. ويجيز بالرواية عني, and I can teach from the riwayah from him. أينما حل وفي أي قطر نزل بشرطه المعتبر عند علماء الحديث والأثر. That but with any or wherever he may go, far and wide, with the conditions that the ulama of hadith that have laid down. Right now, he says, وأرويه صحيح البخاري عن الشيخ المفتي ولي حسن التونكي. So Sheikh Wali Hassan was an amazing scholar that taught hadith in Pakistan. Obviously, somebody that himself is from pre-partition, but I mean, from that generation really, and he passes away in, I believe it's in Karachi, he passes away as well. But he was somebody that one of our teachers, Sheikh Abdullah al-Hazarwi, spoke amazingly about. I mean, he was in awe of this person. And it's interesting actually when he spoke about him, because he said that he was somebody that, he says in his lifetime, he says, I saw people would flock to him and be around him, They would always, he says when he would leave his class, he would be surrounded by a whirlpool of students and of people, admirers, and so on. And he says that in his later stage of his life, hardships befell him. And he says, and at that time, I never saw anybody around him. He says, right up until he passes away, and he says that Allahu Akbar, he says he passed away in a bit of a destitute situation in one of the hospitals that wasn't really catered for, and it's just interesting when he kind of reminisced about him. But he said he was such an amazing person that if he wanted, he said he could have hoarded so much wealth and so much, but he never chose that path. But from him, the ijaza is, he says he took this from Hussein Ahmad Madni, somebody very popular from India. Once again has huge contributions and some interesting works on coexistence within multi-faith societies as well. His book is called, do you remember what the English to it is? It's actually in English as well. But anyway, who takes his ijaza from Shaykh al-Hind, Mahmud al-Hasan al-Deobandi, who Shaykh al-Hind, Mahmud al-Hasan, was somebody who, they used to call him Shaykh al-Arab al-Ajam, somebody who once again led a key role in the fight for freedom against the colonial powers, and was actually imprisoned as well and sent, I believe, exiled as well for a while, and then brought back or allowed to come back. Who took his ijaza from, he says, a Shaykhan, from the two Rashid Ahmad Gangohi and Maulana Muhammad Qasim Nanotwi, both of who take their ijaza from Abdul Ghani and Ahmad Ali Saharanpuri. So from both of these, and Ahmad Ali Saharanpuri as well, a key person who devoted himself to the science of Hadith and Sunnah. Kilahuma, both of them take from Sheikh Muhammad Ishaq al-Dahlawi. And we spoke about Muhammad Ishaq al-Dahlawi and how he produced all these huge and amazing people from all schools really, and that whether that was going to be the likes of Haji Imdadullah al-Muhajir al-Makki, or it was going to be people like Nazir Hussain, Sheikh al-Kul fil Kul, or it was going to be like the likes that go on to produce Rashid Ahmad Gangohi and Qasim Nanotwi, and also on the other side people that would produce the likes of Raza Ahmad Khan Barelvi. So you can see all of these already coming back through to Muhammad Ishaq al-Dahlawi, who takes from Sheikh Shah Abdul Aziz al-Dahlawi, who is the major powerhouse really, a huge powerhouse, produced amazing people, obviously like his own nephew here, Muhammad Ishaq, but also many other people like Sheikh Sayyid Ahmed that we spoke about, al-Barelvi, and several others as well. Right, so who takes from his father Shah Waliullah Dahlawi, the Muhaddith of India really, the legend and the pivotal point, who says, قال أخبرنا الشيخ أبو طاهر Muhammad ibn Ibrahim al-Kurdi, his teacher Abu Tahir al-Madani, this is who he's referring to, who he takes this ijazah from, and he says who took from his father Sheikh Ibrahim al-Kurdi. He says قرأت على الشيخ أحمد al-Kashashi, who says he took from Ahmad ibn Abd al-Qaddus, who took from Shamsuddin al-Ramli, famous Shamsuddin al-Ramli, Shafi'i faqih, who took from Zainuddin Zakaria al-Ansari, who we covered when we were looking at the evolution of Usul al-Mustalah, how it developed, and the commentary that Sheikh Zakaria al-Ansari had done, who took from قال قرأت على الشيخ الحافظ شهاب الدين أحمد بن حجر العسقلاني, obviously somebody who's indispensable really, his works when it comes to Usul al-Hadith and its development, who took from Ibrahim ibn Ahmed al-Tanuhi, who took from Sheikh Abu al-Waqt Abdul Awwal al-Harawi, who took from Sheikh Abu al-Hasan Abdul Rahman al-Dawoodi, from Abu Muhammad Abdullah Sarakhsi. And I'm trying to not read out the whole, they give sometimes a long lineage for their names, but I'm just trying to make it pertinent. and from Abu Abdullah, who took from Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Yusuf al-Farbari. This is one of the key transmitters. Farbari is from Al-Imam Bukhari, and somebody whose transmission of the Sahih went far and wide. And I'd like to do something on the transmissions of Bukhari, inshallah, in one of the coming durus. Okay, speaking about who, although many people took the Sahih, but who were the key transmitters? There are only a handful, and out of them, who took it in what direction and where it became quite popular. So, who transmits Yarwihi an Abi Abdullah Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari. Right, جعلنا الله جميعا من الذين سبقت لهم منه الحسنى. So, alright, there it is. So I mean, this is an example, and we do why we want to associate ourselves with this. There's a riwayah in the Mu'jam of Tabarani al-Awsat and in the Sunnah of Darmi, where the Prophet ﷺ says, Allahumma arham khulafa'i, and they say, who are you khulafa? He says, oh Allah bless my, have mercy on my vicegerents, on my deputies. And when the Sahaba asked, who are they? He said, الَّذِينَ يَأْتُونَ مِن بَعْدِي يَرْوُونَ أَحَادِيثِي وَيُعَلِّمُونَهَا النَّاسِ. Those who come after me transmit my hadith and teach them to people. Have mercy on them. And the isnad, the chain, is the silah al-mu'min. As Sufyan al-Thawri said, it is the weapon of the believer. And if you don't have the isnad, in essence, you don't have the deen. And it's what some of the Al-Andalusi dons, like I believe Abu Ali al-Jiyani and others as well, had said that part of the things that this ummah specifically has been singled out with as a blessing. And he goes on to mention a few things amongst them. He says isnad is one of the things that Allah has graced and blessed this ummah with on its own, and that is absolutely true. If you look objectively, there are no civilizations that have a concept of isnad and the preservation of it in the method that we do today. So it's unparalleled in any other science. So okay, jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.